China announces rollback of strict anti-COVID-19 measures. In China, a dam seems on the verge of breaking. Following a wave of protests, the government has begun to relax some of its most stringent zero-COVID protocols, and regional authorities have trimmed back a slew of requirements for mass testing, quarantine, and isolation. The rollbacks are coming as a relief for the many Chinese residents who have been clamoring for change. But they're also swiftly tilting the nation toward a future that's felt inevitable for nearly 3 years, a flood of infections, accompanied, perhaps, by an uncharted morass of disease and death. A rise in new cases has already begun to manifest in urban centers such as Chongqing, Beijing, and Guangzhou. Now experts are waiting to see just how serious China's outbreak will be, and whether the country can cleanly extricate itself from the epidemic ahead. The National Health Commission in a 10-point announcement on Wednesday stipulated that COVID-19 tests and a clean bill of health displayed on a smartphone app would no longer be required, apart from vulnerable areas such as nurseries, elderly care facilities and schools. It also limited the scale of lockdown to individual apartment floors and buildings, rather than entire districts and neighborhoods. People who test positive for the virus will be able to isolate at home rather than in overcrowded and unsanitary field hospitals, and schools where there have been no outbreaks must return to in-class teaching. The announcement follows recent street protests in several cities over the strict zero-COVID policy now entering its 4th year, which has been blamed for upending ordinary life, travel and employment while dealing a harsh blow to the national economy. China has sought to maintain the hardline policy while keeping the world's second-largest economy humming. But public frustration with the restrictions appears to have finally swayed the opinion of officials who had championed zero-COVID as superior to the approach of foreign nations that have opened up in hopes of learning to live with the virus. China represents, in many ways, SARS-CoV-2's final frontier. With its under-vaccinated residents and sparse infection history, the nation harbors a more susceptible population than really any other large population I can think of, says Sarah Kobe, an computational epidemiologist at the University of Chicago. Soon, SARS-CoV-2 will infiltrate that group of hosts so thoroughly that it will be nearly impossible to purge again. Eventually, just like everyone else on Earth, everyone in China should expect to be infected, says Michael Worobi, an evolutionary virologist at the University of Arizona. One of China's biggest weak spots is its immunity, or lack thereof. Although more than 90% of all people in the country have received at least 2 COVID shots, those over the age of 80 were not prioritized in the country's initial rollout, and their rate of dual-dose coverage hovers around just 66%. An even paltrier fraction of older people have received a 3rd dose, which the World Health Organization recommends for better protection. Chinese officials have vowed to buoy those numbers in the weeks ahead. But vaccination sites have been tougher to access than testing sites, and with few freedoms offered to the immunized, the incentive structure is not built, says Zai Chen, a global health expert at Yale. Some residents are also distrustful of COVID vaccines. Even some healthcare workers are wary of delivering the shots, because they're fearful of liability for side effects. Regardless of the progress China makes in plugging the holes in its immunity shield, COVID vaccines won't prevent all infections. China's shots, most of which are based on chemically inactivated particles of the 2020 version of SARS-CoV-2, seem to be less effective and less durable than mRNA recipes, especially against Omicron variants. And many of China's residents received their 3rd doses many months ago. That means even people who are currently counted as boosted aren't as protected as they could be. A major COVID outbreak in China would also have unpredictable effects on the virus. The world's most populous country includes a large number of immunocompromised people, who can harbor the virus for months, chronic infections that are thought to have produced variants of concern before. The world may be about to witness a billion or more opportunities for the virus to evolve. In the coming months, the coronavirus could also exploit the Chinese's close interactions with farmed animals, such as raccoon dogs and mink, both of which can be infected by SARS-CoV-2, and become enmeshed in local fauna. We've certainly seen animal reservoirs becoming established in other parts of the world. We should expect the same thing there. Even without a spike in severe disease, a wide-ranging outbreak is likely to put immense strain on China, which may weigh heavily on its economy and residents for years to come. After the SARS outbreak that began in 2002, rates of burnout and post-traumatic stress among healthcare workers in affected countries swelled. Chinese citizens have not experienced an epidemic of this scale in recent memory. A lot of people think it is over, that they can go back to their normal lives. But once SARS-CoV-2 embeds itself in the country, it won't be apt to leave. There will not be any going back to normal, not after this.